with another video, and I am still crocheting my granny squares, as you can see this one, and I have already like 30 or more of them. No, I still did not get tired of crocheting the same things, but probably soon, eventually. For the next video, I'm thinking something else because it gets kind of boring to crochet the same thing. So I will try to crochet something that is also repetitive and not boring for next video. I was recently on a vacation to the beach, to the ocean, and I got a tan. It was my birthday a few days ago, so I just came back yesterday, and I don't have any makeup on at the moment, so it might look weird because I got a tan and I just didn't feel like putting on any makeup because we just came back yesterday, and I just really been tired and lazy pretty much. I apologize about the noise in the background because there's some cars there right now making noise. I just want to do a disclaimer that today's story does involve violence against children and a murder of a child as well, so it is really hard to talk about, and if it's something that really triggers you, I totally understand. It's not for everyone, and it's really hard to even listen to this, how devastating it is. So I suggest you to skip today's story because it is a hard one. By the way, there's somebody playing music right now outside, I believe, so that's what you're hearing. I hope that's okay. I can't really do anything about it, so I will have to film the video with this music in the background. This story is very devastating, as I mentioned, and is a proof that we don't really know what happens behind closed doors. A lot of times people can pretend like their life is perfect, and the rich and famous are no exception of this. This young actress, Judith Barsi, who had her life taken away from her at such a young age. Her life was stolen from her, and by a person that was supposed to be protecting her instead. Judith Barsi was born on June 6th, 1978 in San Fernando Valley in California. She was born to Hungarian immigrants Joseph Barsi and Maria Barsi, who fled Hungarian People's Republic at the time after 1956, as it was starting to become more under the influence of the Soviet Union, and many people started to flee the country. Joseph and Maria actually immigrated at different times, but around the same time. They met in California in the 70s, while Maria was working as a waitress in a restaurant in California. And Joseph saw her, and he fell completely in love with Maria. had a lot of money. Because every time he would come to the restaurant, he would pay with $100 bills, and he would leave her a lot of money as tips as well. Maria's family back in Hungary was actually very intelligent. Both her parents both had really good jobs, not sure where they worked, but they had good money and would even help Maria out in the United States. This actually made Joseph embarrassed of his own Hungarian roots because his own family in Hungary was not so well-to-do. His family was poor and he was actually raised in poverty. This is why, one of the reasons why he fled Hungary. And once he came to United States, he actually put on a totally new identity. Because in Hungary, people would bully him for being so poor. And when he came to United States, he decided to bully others and put on this new persona, pretending like he is really rich and wanted people to fear him, pretty much. He would also tell people that his parents back in Hungary are dead when they weren't. He just didn't want anything to do with his parents because he was thinking that they didn't give him anything. Since he moved to California after living some time in New York, when he moved to California, he would claim that he lost the sight in one of his eyes because of a fight that he had back in New York. And he also bragged that he killed a man in New York and was sitting in prison for several years because of this. Something to brag about. These claims, however, were never verified. So Joseph and Maria did get married after a few years of dating, and Maria took Joseph's last name, became Maria Barsi. And after a few months actually of marriage, Maria found out that she's pregnant. It was unexpected, of course, but they were excited because their family was starting and they're gonna have a baby now. Everything was perfect. So eventually, Joseph and Maria, they had Judith in 1978. And this is when they started to go through some financial struggles because Joseph actually was working as a plumbing contractor, so he didn't make much money, as he would pretend like he does. He would constantly tell people that he was making more than he does. And Maria continued working as a waitress. Maria's dream in life was to become an actress. But now she felt like she was too old, I guess. She was in her 30s and she now had a child. she quit her job and became a stay-at-home mom so she can take care of their baby. And Maria actually enjoyed this because this is what she wanted to do. She wanted to take care of the baby and spend the most time possible with their only daughter. Since Maria was spending every day at home with Judith, she had all the time in the world. So she started training Judith to become an actress from the skills that she knows. And she started training Judith when she was only 5 years old. She hoped for Judith to become an actress, something that Maria was never able to become, but there's still hope for her daughter. Maria would train Judith on posture and would train her on correct pronunciation so that Judith can stand out from other kids and hopefully get a role somewhere. When Joseph, Maria, and Judith were at a skating rink one time, there was a filming crew there filming a commercial, and they really liked Judith's charisma, how energetic she was, and they actually needed someone just like her in another commercial they were gonna do. So they immediately invited her to join them. And of course, this was so fortunate because this is exactly what Maria was looking for. And they ended up auditioning her for Orange Juice Donald Duck. That was the first commercial of Judith Barsi. And this is the commercial that opened up so many more doors for Judith. Because of this one fortunate event, she was able to appear in this commercial. She then appeared in more than 70 other commercials and movies as an extras and main actors as well. By the age of 7 years old, Judith Barsi was making more than $100,000 a year, which was so much more than her parents were making. And by the way, this is in 1985. If you convert the money to today's money, that would be $275,000 roughly, and $381. So that's a lot of money for a 7-year-old to be making. The money Judith earned actually allowed the entire family to move out from a small apartment where they were living before to a 3-bedroom house. And this house was very nice, and houses in Hollywood and Los Angeles, they are expensive, especially in nice neighborhoods. So you know that this house was expensive and nice. TV series called The Fatal Vision. It was like a mini series, and she starred in one of the episodes, I believe. And this opened up more doors for her as an actress, because this was the biggest role, her being one of the main actors, not a guest appearance anymore. So she began to get more and more roles after this role. She starred in The Twilight Zone. It was a really famous show at the time, and still, I think. Cheers. It's one of my favorite shows. I like older shows, so she starred in 1 or 2 episodes, I believe, in that show. And then she also starred in a show called Punky Brewster. That was a popular show that was running in 1984. Also, she appeared in a show called Growing Pains and Cagney and Lacey show, among other shows, of course, but these are the most popular shows that she was appearing in at such a young age. But then she got her most famous role in the Jaws movie, one of the sequels after the second Jaws movie, I believe. It was called The Jaws Revenge. There she played a little girl. Her name was Thea Brody. Because of Judith's small size, as she was only 3 feet and 8 inches in size at the age of 10, she was always able to play younger roles that were meant for younger people to play. She was actually a lot smaller than other kids. At the age of 8, she would look like she's 5 years old. Of course, that was more in demand because an older kid that can play a younger kid is more, trainable as well. And that's always better for the movies. She actually started receiving hormonal injections at around 7 or 8 years old because she was so much smaller than other kids, and she needed some help to grow up a little bit more. Judith also was the voice of the ducky in the animated movie called Land Before Time. And this was around the same time as Jaws, I believe. She was getting all these roles at the same time. And The Land Before Time was produced by Steven Spielberg. So you know that she had a good future ahead of her. Now that she got into a Steven Spielberg movie, she also voiced the little girl named Anne Marie in All Dogs Go to Heaven animated cartoon. She was actually so busy between 1987 and 1988 because of all the movies that she kept getting the roles for. And she also appeared in really big commercials for McDonald's, Jif Peanut Butter, Campbell's Soup, and Barbie Mattel. She appeared in a lot of those commercials. So Judith was extremely successful for her age. As Judith became more and more successful, her father, Joseph, started drinking more and more and became a complete alcoholic. He felt useless, like he's not making money for the family now. Judith is the person who's making money, and he did not like that. He was jealous of his own daughter. At home, Joseph would constantly tell Maria that he wants to kill her, and even threatened Maria that he will kill Judith so that Maria will suffer, because he was just always bitter about Judith's success. I don't understand why. He is another parent of hers, and he should be proud that she is so successful at such a young age. He was so disgusting, in fact, that he would even tell his really good friend that he wants to kill his wife. And when his friend asked Joseph what will happen to their daughter if he kills his wife, and Joseph then responded with, well, then I would have to kill her too. In fact, when Maria and Judith were about to leave to Bahamas to film the movie Jaws, Joseph came up to his own daughter and threatened her with a knife. He threatened Judith and told her if they don't come back from Bahamas, he will kill her. Yep. He was so bitter of his own daughter that he would even break Judith's toys, and he would break her kite that she was flying outside. He would just break her toys all the time, and he would call her a spoiled brat. A friend of Joseph's remembers that he even overheard Joseph talking to Judith one time, and him telling her, "Remember what I told you before you left." And I think this was before they went to film the movie Jaws. And Judith started to cry after he told her that. It got to the point that Judith actually started to become scared to come home, and would ask her friends if she can stay at their house overnight. She would tell her friends that her daddy is drunk every day and that he wants to kill her mother. Judith actually started to cry one time before her audition for All Dogs Go to Heaven in May of 1988. She told her agent about the abuse at home. Her agent became increasingly worried and alarmed about this, and decided to take her to see a psychiatrist. She also reported the case to LA County's Child Protection Services. Nothing changed, however, because Maria was too scared to leave her husband at this time, and she also had a fear for her and Judith's safety. Actually, after this situation with the social worker, because the social worker worker decided to drop the case and not proceed after Maria told them that everything is fine in their family. Advisory panel told a top LA County child welfare official to look for ways to lighten social workers' caseloads because the social worker at the time who was assigned to Judith's case had 27 more cases than what is considered a full workload. Social worker just pretty much wanted to close the case because it's one of the so many cases she had, and she did not look any further into this, which things might have been different if they didn't close the case. Maria would constantly tell neighbors that she can't leave him. She can't leave Joseph because he has been threatening her that he will put the house on fire, kill both Maria and Judith. Joseph started drinking so much that he would even miss Judith's birthdays, so he wouldn't even come there. Just did not care. Maria called on Joseph one time to the police, the only time she called on him, and claimed that he tried to choke her and he punched her. But police never found any evidence because there were no bruises, so they just left and they closed the case because at this time domestic violence wasn't really looked into as much. Maria eventually ended up dropping the charges as well. Judith still went to the public school, and she always was such a positive kid. She always had a smile on her face, so the teachers didn't even suspect anything. She would even draw pictures of her family that showed how happy they all are. Joseph was such a disgusting man. He was even having affairs on his side. Not just one affair, it was many affairs on his side. And he still refused to let Maria and Judith go. He controlled their every move. The neighbors started to get concerned because they've seen how loud and angry Joseph gets most of the time when he's drunk. And he was drunk every day. So the neighbors would even offer Judith and Maria to stay at their house for a bit. But Maria never wanted to take anything from anybody. She did not want anyone's help. But she did instead rent a secret apartment in Panorama City, which was very close to the movie studio where Judith was filming at the time. And this apartment was like an escape apartment where Judith and Maria can hang out together. And they were just spending some time together there after Judith would finish filming or during their breaks. Sometimes Maria would lie to Joseph and say that there's an addition that Judith had to do, so they would just go there just to spend some time alone without Joseph. However, one day Joseph ended up following Maria to that apartment. And this is the time when Maria actually was thinking to start moving in some things to the apartment. So maybe eventually move into that apartment completely when they divorced with Joseph. And when Joseph caught Maria, she had a few boxes with her with some clothes, and he confronted her what she was doing. Maria said that she is actually helping a friend move, and this is why she has these boxes. And Joseph seemed to believe her, so she was able to convince him. However, Maria was now changing her decision to move to this apartment because of the fear that he now knows where the secret apartment is. So she decided to move back in with Joseph for their own safety, because now she can't really hide in this apartment because he can come there anytime, pretty much. And also she was fearing that some people judge Maria because of this, but she was thinking that Joseph will keep the house that was bought with Judith's hard-earned money, and he did not deserve any cent of this house. But when a situation like this comes up, when it's your safety or the house, it's money. I mean, money can be made again. So I'm not sure what was going through her head at this time, and I'm sure this was the only option she had come up with to move back in for the safety of both her and Judith. This was, of course, a bad decision that she made. At this time, Judith was actually so stressed from everything that was going on at home, from all the movies that she was doing. I mean, she was just a little child, and she started to pluck her eyebrows from all the stress, which is, I think, a lot of kids do that from stress. And she also started to pluck her eyelashes as well. One night in July of 1988, Judith was spending some time at the neighbor's house, where she was often hanging out because they had kids her age there. And this day she actually told the neighbors that she is afraid to go home today because of her dad. But just like any other day, this was ignored. People were just assuming that her dad was drinking again, and Maria, her mother, would always make it sound like it's nothing really to worry about, because even though he would threaten her and Judith all the time, he would never actually touch them or hurt them. And also everyone knew that children's services were involved as well, but no one had a clue that Maria actually convinced them to close the case, so they weren't really involved anymore. Judith Barsi's final acting role was Anne-Marie in All Dogs Go to Heaven. The director was actually the same director from A Land Before Time. And that director had really big plans for her. He wanted to cast her for other roles because he liked her so much. On July 25th, 1988, Judith was seen by the neighbors riding her bike outside, having a good time. The weather was really Maria and Judith were asleep, he got out his .32 caliber pistol and headed to Judith's room. He pointed the gun at Judith and shot her in the head while she was still sleeping. So she died instantly. At least she did not suffer. This is when Maria awoke and started panicking. She ran to Judith's room and met Joseph in a hallway because he was actually heading to kill Maria now. At this time, no one really knows what happened because nobody was really there, but what investigators came up with was that there was a struggle between Maria and Joseph. Most likely Maria was trying to take the gun from Joseph and pushed him to get to Judith's room. But eventually Joseph got a hold of, and Maria was also shot in the head while she closed her face. So sad. Oh, and it gets worse, because the most disturbing part about this is, if it can get even worse than this, is that Joseph continued living in this house for 2 days, with the bodies being still there, not moved. Judith was still in her bed, and Maria was laying on the floor. Joseph still lived in this house and went on about his life. The following morning, Judith was supposed to come to the recording studio for All Dogs Go to Heaven. When she didn't show up, the agent called the house phone and nobody picked up at first. But when she called the second time, Joseph picked up the phone and told the agent that Maria and Judith were picked up by some black car, and he has no idea where they went or who it was that picked him up. He also mentioned that they're actually divorced and he does not live at this house anymore. And the only reason why he was at this house is because he came back to say goodbye to his little girl. On the morning of July 1988, one of Barsi's neighbors heard an explosion at their house, so they called the police. The first thing that this neighbor thought was that Joseph did it. He set the house on fire, killed the entire family, like he has been threatening for a long time. While the neighbor was talking to the police, they saw that there was smoke coming out of the house. So this neighbor, she was actually an older lady. She took her garden hose and wanted to help as much as possible to put the fire out. She tried to put the fire out with her garden hose before firefighters arrived, of course, and they were able to put out the fire when they arrived. Eventually, when the fire department and police entered the house, they saw 3 dead bodies inside the house. It was the bodies of Judith, age 10, Maria, age 48, and Joseph, who was age 55. So it was obvious that someone set the house on fire and covered it with gasoline. The inside and outside of the house was covered in gasoline. The explosion that the neighbor heard was when Joseph killed himself in the morning of July 28th, 1988. The next day, of course, so many newspapers released articles about the girl who played the voice in so many animated movies and was in so many commercials. A lot of people recognized her. She was killed by her own father. One thing that many articles focused on was that her first role ever television, and she played a role of a little girl who was killed by her own father, which is very eerie to think about when you know that this is what happened to her as well. Maria and Judith were buried in the same grave. And actually they didn't have a tombstone for the longest time until 2004, when her fans actually collected enough money to put tombstones for both her mom and Judith in 2004. Since All Dogs Go to Heaven was released in November of 1988, Judith actually never got to see her work, unfortunately. The animated movie dedicated the ending credits song to Judith. It was actually specifically written for Judith after she died, so the song is really sweet. This case is so sad because it could have been prevented if the case wasn't dropped by the social worker, and if police would have investigated this more, and if Maria and Judith wouldn't have moved back into the house with Joseph. This story is so painful and tragic. How much emotional and physical abuse did they really suffer, Judith and Maria? We will never know. And poor Judith even plucked her eyebrows from all the stress. Can you imagine? It's hard to imagine what Judith could have become if her life wasn't taken away from her at such a young age. She was very talented and had such a bright future ahead of her. Judith would have been 44 this year on June 4th. So much life ahead of her, all taken from her by an evil monster that was her father, her own father. Her life was robbed from her. The house where they lived was actually bought by a family about 21 years ago, and they had no idea about Judith dying in that house until recently. They did say that there's been a lot of unusual activity happening in the house, and there's some parts of the house that are like always cold. Sometimes the garage would open and close. 2 years ago they were featured in a show called Murder House Flip, where designers, paranormal experts, and others tried to reimagine and redesign houses and properties that were sites for notorious homicides and make them no longer haunting